1872, the perfect ship was found in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It had valuable cargo and enough food and water to last 6 months. But there was not a soul on board. 10 people, including a woman and a 2-year-old child, disappeared without a trace. Their story became a legend about the most famous ghost ship in the history of seafaring. Today, we will put aside the myths about sea monsters and focus only on the facts. You will learn about the key piece of evidence that investigators missed during their initial inspection and see the most logical and therefore even more tragic reconstruction of what really happened to the Maria Celeste. For Captain David Morehouse, it was a routine voyage. But on that day, the routine was disrupted. A sailboat appeared on the horizon, moving strangely, almost chaotically, darting from side to side. Its sails were raised, but some were torn by the wind, as if no one had looked after them for a long time. Morehouse ordered a signal to be sent. There was no response. Another one. Again silence. Looking closely, he could read the name on the side, Maria Celeste. The captain's heart skipped a beat. He knew this ship and its captain, Benjamin Briggs, very well. Just a month ago, they had dined together in New York before setting sail. The Maria Celeste had set sail a week before him. But what was it doing here, hundreds of miles off course from Italy? And why was there absolute dead silence on board? It was decided to send a boarding party. Climbing aboard, the sailors froze. The deck was empty. The wheel turned freely. The ship was not just silent, it seemed dead. They began a methodical search, and with each step, the mystery only deepened. The first mistake was to think that it was pirates or a mutiny. The picture was too strange. They went down into the hold. There, in the darkness, stood 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol in neat rows, valuable cargo that was being transported to Genoa. All the cargo was there. No pirate in his right mind would leave such goods behind. The rebellion theory didn't hold up either. Everything was in its place in the sailors' quarters. Their personal stuff, savings, even tobacco pipes. In the galley, there were enough food and fresh water supplies to last 6 months of sailing. The ship suffered neither from hunger nor thirst. But the most terrifying thing awaited them in the captain's quarters. Here, time had stopped. The cabin of Captain Briggs and his wife Sarah looked as if it had been abandoned a minute ago. On the table were dishes with the remains of breakfast, unfinished sewing, a toy belonging to their 2-year-old daughter Sophia. All 10 people, the captain, his wife, their daughter, and 7 experienced sailors, had simply vanished. When the Maria Celeste was brought to Gibraltar, an official investigation began, and it only made things more confusing. The evidence contradicted itself. Yes, the only lifeboat was missing. This pointed to a voluntary evacuation, but why? Why would Captain Briggs, known as a teetotaler and a devout man, abandon a reliable ship? Even stranger, the ship's navigational instruments, the sextant and chronometer, had disappeared, but the ship's log remained. This suggested that the person who had left was a professional and had planned to sail somewhere. It was not a panic, but a calculated move. The human mind cannot tolerate a vacuum, and the newspapers exploded with theories. We will examine the most popular ones to show why they don't work, and then I will show you the very detail that investigators discovered in the hold only after a second, more thorough inspection. It is this detail, overlooked at first, that is the key to the whole mystery. The mutiny and drunkenness theory. Captain Briggs was known for his fairness, and he personally selected his crew, who had impeccable reputations. In addition, the alcohol was denatured, meaning it was poisonous and undrinkable. An attack by a giant squid or other sea monster. This version stirred the imagination, but not a single scratch was found on the wooden hull. The ship was intact. The Bermuda Triangle? The most amusing theory, considering that the Maria Celeste was found thousands of miles away from this area. Every high-profile theory was shattered by the facts. Now, let's return to that very piece of evidence. Upon re-examination, the investigator noticed that 9 of the 1,700 barrels were not made of dense white oak like the rest, but of porous red American oak. At first glance, this seemed like a minor manufacturing error, but it proved to be fatal. Unlike white oak, red oak allows gas and moisture to pass through. Due to the rocking of the ship and temperature fluctuations in the Atlantic, these 9 barrels began to breathe, slowly evaporating the denatured alcohol, its volatile vapors mixing with the air in the confined space of the hold, created an extremely explosive mixture. The ship turned into a giant powder keg, waiting for a single accidental spark. Captain Briggs, as an experienced sailor, could not fail to notice this. Perhaps he heard hissing from the hold, or upon opening the hatch, smelled a suffocating odor. He found himself in a terrible trap. Staying on board meant risking being blown up at any second. And he made what he thought was the only correct decision for a professional. He ordered a temporary, preventive evacuation. The plan was simple and logical. Lower the boat, move it to a safe distance of 100 to 150 meters, tie it to the ship, and wait for the dangerous fumes to dissipate through the open hatches. This explains everything: the missing boat, the navigation instruments taken, and the lack of panic. They were not going to abandon their home. They were going to return to it. And now, the denouement. What turned a well-thought-out plan into a deadly trap? A sudden squall or just a change in the wind. The ship jerks violently, the rope breaks, and in an instant, it's all over. Their only chance of salvation, their home, begins to drift away, empty and uncontrollable. They scream, they row until their muscles tear, but the small, overloaded boat is powerless against the 200-ton machine carried by the wind. Their ship, which was completely intact and had not exploded, simply sailed away, leaving them to die in the middle of the boundless, cold ocean. They were never found. What do you think? Did Captain Briggs have another, better option in that situation? Write your thoughts in the comments. See you in new investigations.